not from him.
Under Obama, you phrase that in
Obama, under Obama, however you want to say it.
well, it's a real contradiction, isn't it? That certainly the impetus, certainly the expectations of people in the election, leading up to the election of Obama, and the confidence and all that sort of thing was quite paramount. And of course, nothing has been delivered. Very little has, very little.
Less than nothing.
Pardon?
Less than nothing.
Well,
Right.
No, the banks were bailed out.
Well, yes, but I'm talking about, if we're talking about being partisans of the working class now, we're really talking about, what's been delivered to the working class. You can see that, the healthcare issues and all that sort of thing. It's going to be hard to say. A lot of people had a lot of hope, a lot of expectation that something would come out of Obama. That it did have there was a vision of a new future that many people shared, and it has not materialized. What will happen? I think it's difficult to make a prognosis now. That for the left in this instance. And certainly, one thing we do know historically is that no struggles, whether in the United States or elsewhere, have come when the working class has been at really the nadir in terms of a depression, an economic depression. It's only come when there's been some recovery. It didn't come in 1929. It didn't come until about 1934. So, while the situation is still pretty bleak, while there are 10 million people unemployed, millions have no health care, all of that sort of thing, to expect that there's going to be a great, uprising is I think, fairly ahistorical. But what is going to happen down the pike a little bit, we don't know. Whether those hopes that were raised in the Obama, victory will be rekindled, but we don't know yet. Keith, any comment?
smart.
Don't read anything into that.
Further discussion.
So I had a couple of questions. One is the contributions that Ben Said made to Marxist theory. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about Marx for Our Times and sort of engage what he thought a little bit and how that fits into the heritage of either revolutionary or revisionist thought. The second is about the development of the MPA. I'm wondering if you talk a little bit about its genesis. Was Ben Said interested in this? Did he need to be won over to this idea? Was he enthusiastic about it? When did it get started? Sort of, what were the social forces in France that led the LCR to make this decision?
Well, on the second one, no, I don't think he had to be really convinced of this, because as I was trying to explain a little bit, the leadership of the League and the League as a whole was always looking for ways to get a little bit bigger. They weren't very satisfied with their little percentage of the vote or occasional leadership of mass movements. They were always looking for this. Now, for some of our friends on the far left that we might consider sectarian, they consider these type of adventures to be adventures and forms of opportunism and abandoning of the program and the like. But I have no evidence that there was any type of opportunism, any type of compromises on central ideas, principles, or what some people in Solidarity are today calling core ideas and the like. There was certainly none of this. What probably stimulated the NPA was some of the great electoral breakthroughs that were happening in the last few years. The LCR has a wonderful spokesman now a leader of the NPA, Olivier Besancenot. And when I was in France in the fall of 2008, I was reading an extended article on Besancenot in Libération, and they were citing polls that said, hey, if he will run for president at that point, he probably would have received about 12% of the vote. So he had a lot of electoral support. And the electoral support came from his championing of struggles, of worker struggles, which are mostly defensive at this point, and of various social struggles. And at the same time, there's been a real collapse of the Socialist Party. As the Socialist Party has failed to take very principled positions in defense of immigrant rights, for example, the beneficiaries have been Le Pen's far-right anti-immigrant group. And so you've seen a collapse of the SP. As far as the Communist Party goes from maybe 1/3 of the vote after World War II, 25% in 1968, all the way down to less than 2% in recent elections. Now, the CP still has a fair amount of influence at the trade union level. They have dozens, if not hundreds, of municipal governments that they control, but they've clearly collapsed as an electoral force, and they don't really seem to have anything to say. All this seemed to create a real space to the left of the left, and the NPA was there. Unlike past attempts that the LCR was involved with, this wasn't a group. These were activists, people involved in different social movements, rank and file trade unionists, sometimes coming from the CGT, controlled by the CP, or the CFDT, controlled by the Socialist Party. And basically they were just kind of, not a whole group, but a layer of people that were connected only by their activism, by their disgust with the formal left, and their being attracted to the revolutionaries around what was the LCR. So I think that's the NPA, and Daniel was certainly was a great partisan. That I know was a great partisan, and I'm sure he was from the very beginning when the idea started to germinate, given his whole past history of always looking for these other forces.
Just, I agree absolutely with Keith, and I'll try to engage your first question, which is pretty broad. What were his contributions? I think that if one looks at his theoretical contributions, and as Keith pointed out, the dialectic between praxis, theory, and praxis, I think that you'll find that that his reading of the predecessors really formed Marxism and Marxist methodology. Marx himself, Luxemburg, Lenin, Marx and Engels, Ernest Mandel, that this is, shouldn't be taken as scripture. It shouldn't be taken, as the Talmud or anything like that, but really as a sort of a method that's very, flexible, that engages reality, and that it's a mode of looking at reality and deciding what to do next. And I think that if you take a look at his engagement with Marx in this book, Marx for Our Times, which is sitting in front of Keith here, I think that his dialogue with Marx in this instance here really points out that Marx was really not a dogmatist in any sense of the word at all. And he wasn't laying down the scripture in capital or anything like that. In fact, he provided a mode of looking at reality and analyzing it, understanding it, and making a determination of how to change that reality in favor of the working class. I think that his influence, by people like Walter Benjamin, really was quite profound with Ben Said, and I think that that gave him that gave him the impetus to do what Keith accurately described, who really embraced the new anti-capitalist party as a very important step forward in this instance. So I could probably spend the rest of the afternoon talking about his contributions, and take a look on the web. Read this book; that will give you a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I just want to thank both of you. This is a fascinating